So I just got back from seeing The Magnificent Seven. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the fall, and I'm happy to say that it was probably better than I was expecting. It wasn't afraid to have fun, shoot people's ears off, and mow down a lot of people, including people that you didn't think were going to die in this movie. So kudos to this movie. Plot's pretty straightforward for a Western. When a small town is in jeopardy because a sociopathic, greedy businessman comes in and tells them to leave or they're gonna die, they hire 7 gunmen to come and train them and help them to fight back. It's as simple as that. As you know, this is a remake of the 1960 film, The Magnificent Seven, and I think it's a very worthy 21st century adaptation of that film. I'm gonna get right to the point. If you're gonna do a cash grab, 21st century Diversity Day remake of a classic, this is how you do it. How do you do it? First, you make a good movie. Second, if you're making a Western, you shoot it on location, not on a green screen. Third, you don't preach 21st century values in a movie set in the 19th century. And 4, you don't water down the violence of cowboys mowing each other down with guns just to appeal to a bunch of little kids that aren't going to go see a Western. This movie got that simple formula right. As for the good, this is a really violent movie, and that's a praise coming from me because I like violence. But this is probably the most violent PG-13 movie I've ever seen. This isn't just kind of softball Avengers-type action. It's violent action where if you get shot in the ear, your ear disappears and blood shoots out of people's chests, and there's a high body count. You know, I'd compare it to yesterday I watched the first episode of Lethal Weapon, the TV show, and that was very much a watered-down, tame version of a rated-R movie, and you could just feel that they were constrained by being on TV. This movie is not a constrained version of The Magnificent Seven. It's a violent movie that takes seriously the nature of violence in the Old West. As another thing about the good in this movie, the action is very well staged and they have lots of little moments. There's variety in the action. So you've got a guy with knives who like knives people, bow and arrow, bombs, of course, revolvers, rifles, Gatling gun. I mean, you've got lots of action shot well so you can see what's going on. It's not handled in a way where you're like, wait, what? Why is there so many cuts? I can't tell what's happening. No, you really can tell what's happening. There's real stunt work going on. There's cool horse tricks and stuff where you use their horse as a shield and things, but real stunt work, real action that you can see what's going on, which is a huge thing today where so many action sequences are just cut to pieces in CGI messes. And also this movie has tons of tension when it comes to like the good old-fashioned showdowns where there's a bunch of guys that are willing to kill people and they're willing to die and they're standing there holding their gun. Those scenes are actually tense, and it was fun to watch it with my wife who's like and like afterwards she's like, I think that was like the most tense movie I've seen in so long. That action scene in the middle of the movie, I was so nervous the entire time. It was so nerve-wracking, which goes back to another good thing about this movie. It escalates as it goes along. So there's kind of cool action sequences kind of in the beginning, a little bit of action. Then around the midpoint, when the Magnificent Seven get to the city for the first time, there's a great action sequence that's both tense, the tension builds, and then it pays off with a great action, explosion, extravagance of people getting shot. And it's much bigger than you think it's going to be when you're watching it. And you think, oh, is that what the finale is going to be like? No, the finale is nothing like that. It's that cranked up times 10. In the big finale at the end, it escalates and it's gigantic and huge. It has the small moments, but it has big moments as well. A whole lot of big moments. Like I was watching it thinking to myself, this is kind of like Braveheart. I mean, it's nothing like Braveheart, but it's a whole lot like Braveheart. And even kind of as violent at Braveheart at times, where this guy's like hacking each other with rocks and hatchets and stuff. The tone and the direction, I think it lands it just right. It's fun, it's exciting, but it's very tense because you know anyone can die at any time, and there's people dealing with real grief and loss, and they've lost people. They're scared to lose their home. They know they're about to die, and so they're dealing with real emotions. While it's kind of a fun ride, it's also kind of a dark ride because there's so much death within the story. And so it mixes all of those elements really well. And when characters have backstories, it's not played heavy-handed, it's played just right, which leads into the plot, which I think is handled very well. It's a very simple standard Western plot of people come in to save a city. It doesn't have a lot of directions, other directions, rabbit trails. It's very focused on this one story, and instead of giving a bunch of subplots to everyone, it gives us just enough backstory that leads them to why would they be in this city at this time? Why would they defend this city? Why would they stay in the city? Why would they want to take over this city? And it's just right, just enough information. So like with Denzel Washington's character, you don't know a whole lot about him, but throughout the movie, you get just enough of his backstory to explain why he would do this. And it's not overly drawn out. It's like a little sentence here in the middle of the movie, a little bit right before the climax, and just a little bit during the climax. It's just a little bit. It's only a few lines of dialogue that say so much because of the way it's acted and the actions that he takes within the movie. And it says everything. Likewise, the female lead in the movie doesn't really have all that many lines of dialogue, but she communicates her actions or her emotions through her actions, and you can understand where she's coming from through just a single line of dialogue. Kind of fills you in on where she's coming from, and likewise through her actions it communicates the story. Since it's a movie and the things don't need to be told to us through expository dialogue, you can show things to us, and this movie understands that. And so that's just a couple of the characters, but really all of the characters just get a few lines of dialogue, but it tells us everything we need to know about these people. And of course, finally, when it comes to the cast, very well cast movie, very well acted movie. And it's not like these are Oscar performances. They're performances for a movie that's meaning to entertain you. So each character is distinct enough, unique enough, and we have enough information that we can distinguish each of the 7 members of the Magnificent Seven, understand who they are, why they are, and be interested in each of them in their own way. And of course, Vincent D'Onofrio brings in this weird, bizarre performance, but it works because he's so good at doing these weird performances and talking in a funny voice, and somehow he sells it. If anyone else tried to sell this voice with that character, you'd be like, what are you doing? Somehow he's just able to pull that off. But all around, great cast, loved the cast, loved what they did. Nice to see Ethan Hawke get roles like this. I don't know why he doesn't do more stuff like this, but he was great in the movie. Of course, love Chris Pratt, and so seeing him in this was wonderful. And Denzel Washington is, of course, Denzel Washington for a reason, because he knocks it out of the park and everything, and he, of course, does that again here. He's very much playing the Denzel Washington character in movies like this, which is a great character that I love to see in movies, so I'm perfectly fine with that. When it comes to the bad, I've only got a few things to say. First off, while I appreciate the simplicity of the plot and that it doesn't go in a bunch of different directions, I feel it could have had just a bit more to it. Just one more kind of back and forth with the main bad guy and his crew. One more little thing in there to give it just a little bit more direction, because the narrative plays so straight, so direct, so simplistically that by the time you get to the finale in the third act, it feels like, wait, shouldn't we have had a couple more turns in this? And you don't. It's just you're there. Now, of course, once you get to the end of the finale, you're like, I don't know if we could add any more in this movie, because that was quite exhausting watching that finale. But before that, watching, I was like, we could use a little bit more in there. Beyond that, I've only really got 4 real quick criticisms. One, some of the shots, actual shots in the film, were out of focus during my screening. Number 2, sometimes Chris Pratt didn't land as best they could have. Number 3, Denzel Washington does a cool horse trick in the finale, and I thought to myself, I want to see more of that, and then there wasn't, so that was kind of frustrating. And then literally the final 30 seconds of the movie just felt a little bit tacked on, and they looked off. They looked overly processed, where the rest of the movie looked so natural and like shot on location. Then the final 2 shots in the final 30 seconds don't look quite right. So that's literally all the complaints I have. As for my score, I'm going to give it a very solid 8.5. I think that they made a very solid Western, a solid, enjoyable film. They're not aiming to make Unforgiven or an Oscar contender. They're trying to make a fun, enjoyable action film, and they delivered that film. If I'm going to be honest, I'm going to probably buy this on Blu-ray, watch it quite a bit, but also, if I'm being honest, it is a very violent PG-13 movie. This is probably R-rated level violence. I'm pretty surprised they were able to make this a PG-13 movie. So just if I'm being honest, you need to be aware of that. There was a little kid in our screening, and they walked out about halfway through the movie right after an action sequence, and I'm pretty sure it was because the mom realized, like, oh, this isn't like a little kid Western. They kill people in this Western. Please go see this movie. Hollywood needs more Westerns, and so this is a good one, so please go see it. And beyond that, since they're going to do remakes, let them know this is the right kind of remake, as opposed to RoboCop and Total Recall, which are just neutered versions of really good movies. A few days ago, I reviewed The Magnificent Seven from 1960, so my review's up on this channel. I both recommend you see that movie and watch my review. I'd greatly appreciate it. Coming up next week, early on in the week, I'm going to post up a review analysis called How to Fix Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Well, The title says it all as to what that's going to be. I've been putting a lot of work into it. It's probably the video I spent the most time actually writing and kind of putting thought into, so I'm very excited about that. So check that out on, I believe, Monday. When it comes to remakes, how do you think The Magnificent Seven stacks up? I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. Please join us in the comment section. Let's talk about movies. If you're new to my channel and you like the sound of my voice, please consider clicking that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. That did not shoot. Oh, jammed.